In this lesson, we'll look at setting up image planes that we can use to reference when we are building our bike. All right, so here at the beginning, when we're just starting modeling, having reference images in our 3D view is going to be helpful, actually in our orthographic views to be specific, but it's going to be really helpful to be able to match up what we're creating to a common image. So I'm going to be working with the same image that you're going to be working with. It'll be much easier for us to get the same result. Now this is also useful if you're building something from artwork, from reference, to bring in images like this to get the placement of everything right. It can be very useful. It's a personal preference also. Some people I know don't like to use image planes, and some people like to use them. Another thing is if you're working with multiple image planes and trying to match those up in different views, oftentimes the images don't match exactly. So at some point, normally you have to let go of the images and start to just look at your model as it stands on its own. So let's take a look at how to load up an image first. And so I'm going to just go into the side view, okay, and let's go to View, all the way down to Image Plane, and let's import an image. Okay, we're going to go into the Source Images part of our Maya project. This will be with your project files, and we'll find the side.jpg file. And so we'll go ahead and click on that, and let's open it up. And so that's going to load that image up into our side view. All right, and so we can take a look at that. You can see here in our perspective view where that's actually located, that image plane. And so this will allow us to build our geometry on top of this. So if we were to go ahead and bring in, let's say, a cube, we'd be able to see that kind of over the top of our geometry. Okay. Now there are things that we can do to our image plane. So now if we select image plane under View, you can see we not only have import image, we also have image plane attributes and this image plane 1. We can go ahead and bring up this image plane 1, and in our attribute editor you can see a sample image here. Let me just go ahead and tear this off. So we have a sample image there. Then we also have options here for whether I want to display it looking through the camera or in just the front camera or side camera rather, or whether we want to have it in all views. Okay, whether we want to display RGB, RGBA, and so forth, we can do that. Okay, you can see how we can change the color gain if we want to dial that down a little bit. Okay, and right now you can see that it's fixed, so if I move over and around, that image plane doesn't move. I can also have it attached to the camera, so if I move it moves with me, but I want to have it locked to the geometry instead of to the camera. Okay, we also can come down here, we can see the name of the image plane. We're not using an image sequence, so we don't have that checked. Okay, we also have options for placement. You can see we can come down here, and if we wanted to start to move this around, we can start to move that. Okay, if we look in our perspective view, go back and select our image plane. Okay, and go to our image plane 1 tab here. Okay, and we can start to move this. And you can see that this is actually moving it in the X. So I'm going to move it back here a little bit. So it's not, or geometry is not going to be right on top of it. It's going to actually be in front of it because we're going to build most everything here around the origin. And so you can set that here. Okay, and if you want to change the size of it, you can do that here in the width and in the height. You can change that as well. All right, this is not something that we want to have rendered or anything like that. It's just something for our use to come in here and match up some geometry to in the side view so we know where all these pieces are going to be. Okay, so that's setting up an image plane, and you can find that in your viewport under View, and you can set up different ones for each viewport if you want. Okay, if you want to delete the image plane, we can open up the attribute editor, and with our image plane selected, we can say select, and we can delete it if we want to. Okay, we'll go ahead and leave it as is. You want to make it so that it's not too bright. You want to be able to see the detail, but you don't want it to overpower the geometry that you're going to be building on top of it. Okay, so we'll use this as our starting point to build our model. If we want to build it up on top of the grid, so the tires would be on top, we could move this. So if we go into our image plane attributes, we can start to move that up, and we want it actually in the Y. Okay, so we can start to dial that in a little bit, and maybe 8.3, and try 8.5. Okay, so we can get that so that our geometry will be built up on top rather than down here along the center. Okay, so that's something we can do as well. So once we have our reference image loaded in as an image plane, let's go ahead and actually get started modeling. I'm sure you're anxious to do that. So we'll start by looking at NURBS curves and using a loft to create part of this frame. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start that process in the next lesson.